Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to talk about stretching and folding your dough when making artisan bread. What is stretching and folding? It's basically a gentle form of kneading that helps preserve the trapped gas inside the dough so we get an open crumb. As opposed to sandwich bread, where we knead it very vigorously and we degas it before we shape it, and that gives us a very closed crumb. Stretching also strengthens the gluten network. Gluten forms when we add water to flour. There are proteins in there that combine when you do that step, that's autolysis, to form gluten. But the gluten strands, they're very short. They're very chaotically aligned. When you're stretching the dough, you're actually elongating these gluten strands and you're combining them into a web-like network. I kind of think about a bunch of balloons that are interconnected inside the dough, and they expand when you go through bulk fermentation or when you're baking. Here's a photo of gluten strands under a microscope after stretching and folding. You can see how they formed a network, like a web, to hold the gas bubbles in. And here's a photo of the last loaf I baked. If you look closely, you can see the protein strands. Another thing stretching and folding does is it equalizes the temperature throughout the dough. If the outside is warmer than the core of the dough, for instance, the fermentation won't be equal through the dough. So you're trying to make sure that the temperature of your dough ball is equal all the way through, center to outside. There are various techniques for accomplishing the stretch and fold process. First one is the slap and fold technique. This is good for low to medium hydration doughs. It's a quicker process, but it's really messy. You end up with pieces of dough flung all over your kitchen, and there's a lot of cleanup afterwards. But it is kind of fun, especially if you're trying to get some frustrations out. Now you can do several sets of these slap and folds and then rest in between, or what I do is I just go straight on 10 minutes and then I stop and then I go straight to bulk fermentation. In 10 minutes my dough usually feels pretty smooth and ready to move forward. What I've found when I use this technique is that the rise of the bread is not as high. It tends to flatten out more, and the crumb's just a little bit tighter than my normal bakes. So I've tried it about half a dozen times, and it's not something I'm going to make as part of my regular routine. Then there are coil folds. Coil folds are really good for high hydration breads like ciabatta breads, or when you're using a low protein flour, or any kind of ancient grain flours where the dough is naturally very loose. It treats the dough very gently, and it takes a lot longer to get your dough in shape because it treats it so gently that you end up doing about twice as many folds as you would if you're just using regular letter folds. So it's a long technique, but it's actually a very good one. Laminations. Basically stretching your dough into a pane on a wet countertop and folding it into a neat square. That's what a lamination is. I've tried this with several bakes and it works absolutely fine. It makes good bread, but it seems like a lot of trouble, and letter folds give me just as good a bread. So why would I take my dough out, stretch it around, and do this? You can try it. It's kind of fun. It's also very messy. You'll be cleaning your counter a lot. There's also the robot mixing. You can do a couple sets of robot mixing until the dough gets nice and smooth and then go straight to bulk fermentation. When I tried this method, I got a very silky dough, but poor structure, very much like a high hydration dough. Perhaps I just need more practice at it, but what I really think happened was I think I did 2 sets of 5 minutes, and probably I should have just done 1 set of 5 minutes, and it would have turned out just fine. But it is faster. If you figure 5-10 minutes of work instead of 1.5 or 2 hours of stretching and folding, I mean, why not? Give it a try. See if it works for you. Letter folds. This is used for pretty much low to medium high hydration doughs. This is the technique I use most of the time, but it'll take, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how many sets of folds you do and how much you rest in between. But it's very consistent. It's very easy. and it's not very messy. In conclusion, generally, if you're doing some sort of stretching and folding, you'll produce decent artisan bread with a nice open crumb and a chewy crumb. Just remember to let the dough tell you what it needs. Feel the dough and respond to it. I don't know how else to say it, but you really need to feel your dough and know what it's asking for. More folding, less folding, more rigorous folding, more simple, easy, non-rigorous folding like coil folds. If you want more details about techniques, just reach out to me. You know where I'm at. Everybody have a great day and happy baking, everybody.